Will he or won't he be back for game 3? We'll chat about it on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leafs-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Davd Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. You can make plenty of wagers on tonight's game, Leafs Bruins game 3 at Scotiabank Arena. That's right. The series has now shifted back into Toronto. They have home ice advantage. Technically, it's now a best of 5 series at this point with Toronto can get up to 3 games on home ice. Dave, how you feeling heading into game 3 tonight?
Excited, actually. I have a buddy who's going to the game. I know someone else is going to the Square. It's the buzz is, I think the buzz we'll definitely see it when the game starts, but yeah, being there 1-1 got to feel a lot better, because if they can find a way to really take advantage of home ice, I just want the series to end sooner rather than later in the Leafs favor, I should say.
Would be nice. Would be ideal. Speaking of ending the series soon, when round 1 ends, we'll be giving away that Austin Matthews jersey for a giveaway. And just a quick reminder for all of those who have yet to sign up, we have a form to fill out down the show notes below, and essentially just giving us your kind of basic information. But that is what you're going to have to do if you want a chance to win the Austin Matthews jersey for us hitting 5,000 subscribers. So check that out in the show notes down below, or wherever you get your podcast. That should be in the show notes there as well. Without further ado, we've got a busy show today. We've got a good conversation lined up with Julia Tocheri, my former co-host, with me over on Leafs Lunch. It's a little bit of a Leafs Lunch reunion in a way with her and I. We've yet to actually sit down and talk Leafs on a platform, I suppose, since Leafs Lunch was pulled off the air abruptly last year. So it'll be good to chat with her. I'm excited for it, Dave. And then you'll also be there as well for the chat, obviously, which is always very, very nice. And then afterwards, we're going to get into whether or not what's the situation with William Nylander, because we still have no idea what's going on with Willie, or whether or not he's going to be playing in tonight's game. But without further ado, let's get to our conversation with Julia Tocheri. Joining us now on the Locked On Leafs podcast is my good friend. It's Julia Tocheri. She is with TSN and BarDown contributor, and she is a co-host of the Jocks and Jills podcast. What's going on, JT? Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, guys, thank you for having me. Just ripping some playoff hockey, sitting on the couch most hours of the day this time of year. I love it, though. It really is. The first round is the most magical season of the year.
It is. It really is. And I mean, the vibes weren't great after game 1 between the Leafs and Bruins, but I would imagine the vibes in the Tocheri household a little better heading into game 3 tonight.
Yeah, game 1. Man, I didn't even know how to feel. I had to go back and reflect on last year, because I guess it kind of was a shellacking, in game 1 versus Tampa last year. So I was trying to kind of find solace in that. But there was just so little juice in that first game. And then almost exactly the opposite last night. Like, Austin Matthews had his hero moment. Max Domi looked great. Like, the whole team looked awesome last night. But specifically, you had your best player go Superman mode, which is what you want this time of the year. So the vibes are high. Yeah.
Very high. And I know that you're the vibes queen, all about the vibes. So are you getting good vibes that, like, Austin, who really arrived in the playoffs, or arrived in this playoffs, I should say, in game 2. He was a beast. Like, arguably, some are saying the best game that he's ever played in a Maple Leaf uniform.
Yeah.
He was that good. You think he's going to be able to follow it up with a solid performance tonight in game 3 and hopefully put this team up 2-1?
I like the idea of him following up the effort and the intensity. Like, you're not going to get a game winner every night. You're not going to make that move every night because, oh my gosh, that move was like the sexiest thing I've ever seen. Austin Matthews probably isn't going to have the most hits in the game every single night. Last night was a bit of a unicorn night, but he has changed, I think, the standard in terms of what we're going to expect from Austin Matthews when it comes to intensity. And you always know he's going to bring intensity, but you know what I mean? In terms of raising the bar when it comes to just buy into the game and how engaged he was and how he decided how that game was going to end and ultimately called game on his stick. Like, he was the X factor in that game. He decided that they were not going to go home down 0-2 and he made that call. And that's ultimately what happened.
Well, I was just about to ask, like, you got to feel that with the series now being 1-1, the vibes at Scotia are going to be a little different as opposed to this being an 0-2 return home. Got to think.
Yeah. So I've been buzzing around the square a little bit. I'm going to be there tomorrow night as well. The vibes, I'm going to go like night 1, extremely high and then extremely low. Obviously, last night, Stanley Cup levels of excitement. But I can't imagine what that square would have looked like if, and I don't know, it's the playoffs and it's Toronto. People love the playoffs. So I'm sure people still would have been fired up, but I can't imagine what it would look like for game 3 at the square in Toronto had they actually lost those 2 games in Boston. Like, it would have been putrid, the vibes. That's the only word for the vibes.
Well, especially in this city, like the second things go wrong, it's like, why do we even think that things are going to go well for once? It doesn't. It's Toronto. Like, everyone has just a bad vibe around them when the team is losing. That being said, we're chatting with Julia Tocheri. Brad Marchand, who was an interesting fella, obviously. I don't know if you heard, but he actually praised the Leafs for their physicality today when speaking with the media. And I mean, sure, some of it could have been tongue-in-cheek, but I don't know, by watching it, the Leafs are definitely far more physical. So I think he was actually being genuine with that comment and maybe showing him a little bit of respect. Like, how impressive you been with the fight and the pushback that the Leafs are giving Boston early on in this series? And do you think it's actually kind of making a difference here compared to years past?
Yeah, well, Marchand said it, and I didn't know how to take that. I have to be honest with you guys. Just because he said it, then I'm like reading between the lines and I'm thinking, like, is he being cryptic? Is he making fun of them in some way? I was reading way too deep into it.
They have been physical, and it's been a lot different.
Exactly.
Right?
So the key word to what he said was, like, they're built different, and they are. Yeah. Like, they didn't have a Domi, a guy who's so hard on the forecheck and kind of like a pit bull out there, but also contributes offensively. They didn't have Bertuzzi, who definitely took it a little bit too far last night. Same thing with McCabe, took it too far with the physicality in game 2, but ultimately is just a more physical guy than I don't know, the guys they used to have back there holding it down, like Justin Hall's of the world. Not for him to catch a stray right now, our good buddy Justin Hall, but he wasn't throwing the body at all, or you know what I mean? He wasn't very physically imposing.
Yeah.
So that was the word that Marchand used. They're built different. They actually are built different. And not to mention Ryan Reeves, who I know people have mixed feelings about. I'm a big Revo fan, and it does, I think, change the complexion of the game a little bit when you have the toughest guy on the league on your team. Like, having him, if you got Patty Maroon patrolling the red line last year, like, who's going to bump hips with him out there? I don't know if anybody is. So it's definitely a factor. It's definitely a factor. Did they take it a little too far maybe in game 1 to the point where, like, there's a puck on the ice, guys, that actually needs to go in the back of the net at some point? Maybe they forgot that a little bit in game 1, but game 2, it felt like they really had the recipe figured out.
When you consider the change in how the Leafs have been playing, but I think when you also look at even the offensive part of it too, right? The power play and all those things. Do you feel like they just needed to find a way to just simplify things? Because I was watching parts of game 2 even, and they looked like they were trying to make that extra pass. And then I think John Tavares did the one thing everyone was just hoping for, which was just shoot the damn puck.
Turn and shoot.
Just turn and shoot. Don't take that extra pass. Do you feel like sometimes that's maybe something the Leafs just need to get a little bit better at going forward, is don't try to do too much. Just kind of simplify it a little bit more. Is that kind of how you feel?
Maybe it's just adopting to playoff hockey in general, because playoff hockey does wind up being that simple, make the right play, not the pretty play, make the easy play and the safe play more so than it is those pretty plays that wind up being the highlight reel moments in the regular season. So yeah, I think it's part of just like adapting to the playoffs, which is something that I feel a little bit more comfortable saying the Leafs are able to do. Like Austin Matthews, very obviously, he was a monster all year long, but he very obviously elevated for that game last night.
Today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the price you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL, and baseball is in full swing. And FanDuel is your place to bet on every game right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed. That's guaranteed for $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Yeah.
I think John Tavares deserves a little bit of love. Like, he got some clutch goals last year in the playoff. I'm calling it a playoff run. I don't care that they won one round. It was a playoff run, god damn it. In the playoff run last year.
Best run they had in 20 years. So
it was a run. It was a run, okay? So I think it's safe to say that some of these guys definitely have learned to play in the postseason and have that dog in them, if you will. And some of the guys, Liam, and AB knows my boyfriend Liam, he's Mr. Positive. So today we were listening to Overdrive, as we do in every pretty much day, especially in the playoffs when we're double dialed in. And Mitch Marner came up, and Mitch Marner, I'm sure you guys have talked about, and he's a hot topic of conversation in the city. Oh, yeah. And Mr. Positive, Liam, brings up, he goes, maybe it's a good thing they're not all clicking right now. Like, it's going to be a long postseason. So maybe they need to take turns with who's firing on all cylinders at all times. So right now it's Austin. Maybe Mitch is just waiting for his turn. I don't know.
Hey, you know, I like the optimism. I do appreciate the optimism. What is kind of interesting, though, about Mitch Marner, I'm glad you brought him up, because like, I want to get your thoughts. I know Liam's thoughts, and he's trying to be optimistic, but I know that you wear your heart on your sleeve a little bit more sometimes. I was kind of perplexed. I was listening to Sheldon Keefe after game 2, and he was kind of praising Mitch Marner and thought that he did a lot of really good things. And they kind of doubled down on it when he was speaking with the media Tuesday afternoon. And he said, Mitch, even last night, made a few plays to advance the puck, get the puck out of trouble. Those guys are taking on a tough responsibility, taking on Pasternak. Besides that one faceoff play, I really liked what they've done against that line. So, like, overall, how do you feel about Mitch Marner? Because, yes, I guess Sheldon can sit there and say whatever he wants about Mitch, and some people look at that and say, wow, look at him coddling his star winger again. But I personally have not been too big of a fan of what he's done so far. I think he's got a lot more to give. Yeah.
And Sheldon Keefe, I don't know, maybe he will, maybe he'll, I don't know. I guess he's not going to go out and rip him in the media in the postseason, but I don't know how much Sheldon Keefe is loving his game either when he's kind of moving down the lineup and playing less and less minutes, right? So obviously he's seeing it too, which I appreciate. Sheldon Keefe adjusting on the fly and playing him a little bit less and not playing him with Austin as much if he's not performing up to that standard. Mitch, I feel for him. There's a lot. It feels like there's a lot on the line for him this postseason, with Willie locked up and with Austin locked up. And with this whole core feeling like it has a Last Dance vibe around it. Like I have a lot of empathy, I think, for Mitch Marner and the amount of stress that it looks like he takes on at this time of year. Like the guy just looks like he wears the whole weight of the world on his shoulders sometimes. That one play that's really viral right now is crappy. Maybe lacks a little bit of context. Like it's such a tough look isolated like that. I'm not going to defend it, but the one goal that everyone was saying that he blew coverage on, I don't even think that was this guy. I think he just ended up being last man back. So I'm not going to rip Mitch Marner. Has he been even close to where he can be? No. Am I hoping that maybe tomorrow night he's able to play with some freedom, series tied, going home? I hope so. And I'd love to see it out of Mitch Marner. And he's won, like he won in junior. It's not like he has no experience winning. So I'd love to see him. It feels like a mental hurdle, and I'd love to see him get over it and be able to play really free in the postseason.
So do you think getting Nylander, like if Nylander returns for game 3, maybe
what
putting
the heck
him...
is the deal with Nylander? What are our favorite theories? What are our oh my gosh.
Dave thinks that he retired, apparently.
Oh,
he retired and he's just living in Florida now?
No, I saw...
That's actually my favorite theory.
I saw someone on Twitter say something about how, I heard that he's retired and he just doesn't want to play. But I'm like, that's the most ridiculous, ludicrous thing
just
I've ever
before
heard.
He's about to get his big money, he retires. That's
yeah.
Yeah,
the other one is like Keefe is benching him. Yeah, that's happening in the postseason, guys.
Ridiculous. I don't know. Like, there's clearly an injury there of some kind, but it is peculiar that he, had practice for 2 straight days and then was unable to go. Like, it's the playoffs. People play through everything in the playoffs. Like, you got dudes literally playing on torn meniscus, torn ACLs, like
lacerated spleens.
Lacerated spleens.
No, their spleens are good. They're healed and fast too.
Yeah, those things heal real fast. So I hear, and perfectly fast, actually. I don't know. Honestly, I'm like, again, to take the tinfoil hat on, obviously there is an injury here, but I'm hoping he can get ready for game 3. The fact that he was skating ahead of game 2 for a couple of days makes you think, all right, couple days more, and then potentially you're back home game 3. Let's see if he can go. I know yesterday in practice, Keefe was saying there was no update on Nylander.
There never is.
Never is. Unable to give us updates, according to Brad Trilliving said no daily updates on injuries. Which I don't
ask every day.
Yeah, it's like, what do you think? They're not going to ask you every day anyways? Like, you're just going to go with no comment every day? All right, so be it. That being said, though, like, I know that Nylander, when he went out with injury, like towards the end of the season, he was playing on a third line and kind of they were spreading out the wealth. But if they need to get some more offense out of that second line and they kind of need to wake Mitch Marner up a little bit, you think maybe if Nylander returns tonight, it'll be on the second line as opposed to back on the third?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'd be interested to see where Keefe opts to slide him in. I really hope that he does play tonight. But I'm into the idea. I think right now I'm into the idea of spreading out the wealth. I think Mitch has to get his own line going. I think he's more than capable of that. I think a game at home when you're tied, and it just feels like there's a little bit of freedom for him to play tomorrow night. I'd really like to see Mitch drive his own line. And maybe if that doesn't happen, then you slide Nylander up and you can't spread out the wealth as much. But I really was liking the look of all 3 of them separate lines with the wealth spread out there.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's also interesting who they're going to decide to take out. Like, it's you put Nylander in. I mean, look, it doesn't matter who you take out if you're going to get a Nylander back. But I'm very curious to see who shall. I mean, everyone's probably going to say Nick Robertson.
Yeah, probably our guy, Nicky Bobby.
Man, I like Nick Robertson's jam here and there in the series. Like, have you got shoving in front of the net? Like, he's done. I feel for him too, because it's like he's been on the fringes for so long, and every time it feels like he's finally got his feet on solid ground, it's like, sorry, Nicky, you got to come out again, or sorry, Nicky, you got to go to the Marlies again.
This is the plan. They're going to take him out.
Yeah.
For one game, they're going to put him back in so he can score a goal.
Ooh, he does always score when he's put back into a lineup. 4 times in a row where he's gone back into a lineup. He scored a goal. I like that thinking, Dave. I like that That's long-term thinking right there.
Are we
So maybe
pre-planning like an injury or something?
possibly, or you just take Holmberg out. You get Holmberg out, pop potentially, and that's how you get Nicky Bobby back in for game 4. That could be the case. I don't know. I like that thinking though, Dave. So I gotta show you this video. Dave, can you pull up this video? The video that I sent you earlier.
Yes, I know which one you're talking about.
You pull it up. Yeah, I gotta show it and play it for Julia because
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Last year, Julia did a seance for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think it was
may not be another one coming this year.
Well, I don't know if we need it because my Nona has helped the Toronto Maple Leafs get the Malocchio away from them. Apparently,
Nona did this last year.
I was sent this video from my Aunt Maria. She listens to this faithfully. Shout out. I was sent this video today. And for those who are watching on YouTube, you can see it. She's literally like just getting rid of the whole Malocchio. And
I know exactly what she's doing.
Oh, yeah.
For the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Special right here.
Oh, getting rid of the evil eye. This is what the Italians do. For anyone who doesn't understand or isn't Italian, this is some crazy old witchcraft thing that Italian old grandmas do, Italian old nonas do to get rid of the evil in the house. Like if you're sick, if you're anything
around my neck to keep the evils away, I would say it has about a 70% demon keeper awayer accuracy rating at this point.
Exactly. So you either get a pepper around your neck. That works, or you get a nona to go and put some whatever the hell they do.
Olive oil, you could do it with an egg. There's
olive oil is usually water. The way it goes.
Yeah.
I think so. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure like the first time someone ever did this when it came to the playoffs was for Freddie Anderson because he had a really bad game where he was hurt or something, and they did the Malocchio to help Freddie.
I'm sure GTA nonas have been trying to take the Malocchio off this team for a long time.
Yeah.
How many grandsons have been going to Nona saying we need to do something, Nona? It's not working.
We need help.
For real.
Please. Prego, Nona. Yeah, no, I'm sure that's been happening a lot. But I thought it was funny. I thought you would appreciate that.
Oh, I do big time. And that has me feeling good going into game 3 tomorrow night. I won't lie. I'm really curious about Willie Nylander. Like, where the hell is that guy? Is he going to play? I look forward to all day tomorrow following the moment by moment updates. I look forward to staring at my phone and wondering what's going to happen. You know what? It's kind of fun when that's like an event that everyone's going through. Like everybody's going to be on their phone looking for Mark Masters or Chris Johnston tweets.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Around
I'm fired up for that.
6:45-ish, 6:40 when they hit the ice for practice. Let's see if they're in for the pregame skate. See if he's doing the pre-skate line rushers. If he is, he'll be playing. If not, I don't know, man. Someone's got to play.
I don't get the mind games, though. Like, he so obviously wasn't playing those 2 games in Boston. Like, why was he dilly-dallying around out there?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what the situation was. And I hate how secretive they're being about it all. Like, we don't know what the injury is, how serious it is, or nothing. Like, I don't know. It's really bizarre. If they knew that he most likely was not going to play in Boston, then they should have said, yeah, he's probably not going to play the next 2 days. We'll see what happens when we get to Toronto. But no, instead kept the speculation up. And I don't know.
For a team that's like, oh, the media coverage is so crazy around us. Like, it's so unreasonable. Then they create their own, like, Da Vinci Code. It's like, guys, just be normal. Just be normal. And not everyone would be freaking out all the time.
You got Pat McAfee screaming at insiders and experts asking what the heck's going on with William Nylander. Like, you're doing this to yourselves.
Well, it's like in this. So this is what's happening with William Nylander. Meanwhile, you've got the whole Thatcher Demko situation, and they came out. Yep, Demko, he's not going to be playing tonight. Doubtful for the series. Might not even play for the rest of the series. Okay, now we know. And apparently, it's a similar knee injury that he had earlier this season when he missed kind of the final 5 or so weeks of the season. So there's information there. Okay, that doesn't have to be a story every day until he's back, and that's it. Now, not this whole what's up and the tinfoil theories that are floating around out there. It's insane. I don't know.
I love them, though. Keep your crazy theories coming. I want to hear all of them.
Let us know in the comment section down below. The craziest theory. Why is Nylander not playing? Why is he not in the lineup?
Careful what you ask for, guys. Just that's all I'm gonna say is careful what you ask for.
Yeah. Julia, we'd be dumb not to ask you how our sister, I guess not the sister Leafs. We like to think at some point they will become it, the Toronto PWHL team.
Yeah.
How are the sister Leafs, I suppose. That's what we've been calling them on the show. How are they doing this year? What do you think? I know that they just keep winning games and Nat Spooner keeps scoring goals. How are we feeling about them?
Yeah, the ladies are ripping it up, man. A little bit of a sus start. Everyone was kind of like holding their breath, and there were a lot of like Lady Leaf to Leaf comparisons happening. And then they went on that 11-game heater, and Natalie Spooner got like a bajillion goals. They lost one right before Worlds, ended the winning streak. But then they just kept it rolling, even right after Worlds. Like, how cool was that game at the Bell Center versus Montreal this weekend? Just seeing, there's been so many cool women's hockey moments over the past year, just getting to, because so many of these girls have been kind of in this game for a long time. Like Poulin's been with Team Canada since like, I think her first camp was like 2007 to 2009 range. Like she's been around for a long time. So she's seen this game kind of grow right in front of her. And she's always the player I kind of think of first because of that. So she's standing at center ice in the Bell Center. And back in the day in the CWHL, they had a Bell Center game and nobody went. And Pooh talked about that. She was like, we played at the Bell Center. It was really cool. It was a dream to be there. But you got on the ice and you looked up and it was like dressed like a seat night. Like there was nobody there. To see her at center ice, to hear the crowd like sounding like a playoff atmosphere in Montreal, rather almost, and just for her to get to have that moment at center ice, that was really cool. But then I just started to go on about Montreal, and it was Toronto that won that game. Sarah Nurse got the overtime winner. It was a spoiler. I think playoffs are going to be crazy. I think that Toronto is going to finish first as long as they finish strong. And
who do they pick? Who do they pick?
I know.
Series.
So I was kind of talking to Troy Ryan, their head coach, about this, and I was like, "So will you guys maybe?" It's going to be a race to the finish, so it's hard to tell who 2 and 3 are going to be right now, or who 3 and 4, I mean, are going to be right now. But Troy was kind of saying, like, man, it's tough because you don't want teams to think you're taking them lightly. You don't want to think you're creating a rivalry, but even if you don't pick the 4th seed, it's kind of like you're picking the 3rd seed and therefore creating a little bit of a rivalry with them. So either way, it kind of feels like a pick your poison situation, but I think that's going to make the playoffs electric. It's going to be a 5-game semifinal series and then a 5-game final series. Top 4 teams make it into the playoffs. So I think they're going to be, the teams know one another really well already. It's been spicy too. Like at the end of the Boston Toronto,
I saw that. I said it was a little preamble for the playoffs. Yeah,
exactly. It kind of was a lead into that. The games are really entertaining. The players know one another really well. It's been really fun to cover. And Toronto's a really fun team. If you guys like Toronto hockey and you haven't been watching PWHL Toronto, hop on. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Listen out.
No. It's good hockey. It really is. And I think it was really cool too. I saw a clip. Was it Mark Mathot went up to Ottawa?
Yeah.
He was doing kind of a hip check. I don't know what you would call it, like a practice, I guess.
He did a clinic. Like I remember being in Pee Wee hockey, and this is something that the league is gonna implement from what I understand going forward. Because this year, like the hits have been big and it's been fun to watch, but like it's tough. It's a little dangerous when you don't know how to hit, you don't know how to be hit. Yeah. So I think it's going to take a little bit of getting used to, but to your point, Ottawa had Mark Mathot there to do a little bit of a clinic. And this is what I was going to say. I remember Pee Wee, like when it went to body contact, we had somebody come in and we did a safe body checking clinic type of thing. So Mark did that. And like, imagine learning the hip check from Mark freaking Mathot, the king of the hip check. And I was watching the Ottawa game this weekend and I saw one, and then I saw on Mark's Twitter as well that he was watching as well.
Textbook hip check, exactly how he taught it. And I thought it was really cool. And obviously if this becomes more of the norm around the PWHL and, more of these camps or more of these clinics kind of get held around the league, and as these girls learn to hit a little bit more, I mean, that's just going to add even more excitement to the game. Just add that little extra physicality that people crave when they watch hockey. So I thought it was really cool to see that happen. When do playoffs start again?
It's going to be last regular season game, I believe, is May 7th. So no official playoff schedule yet, but it'll be after that.
Be sometime after that. Beautiful. Perfect. Julia, really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And for anyone who wants to know anything and everything about the PWHL, Julia's got you covered with the Jocks and Jills podcast with her and Tessa Bonhomme. You want to tell the listeners and viewers all about the podcast and where they can find it?
Yeah, we drop on Mondays. It's at Jocks and Jills on Twitter, Instagram, X, whatever it is, TikTok, Spotify, YouTube. Toss us a subscribe. We drop a new episode with a player interview and a little league recap, women's hockey recap every Monday, and we've been having a lot of fun with it. So hop on if you're interested in the women's hockey game.
Awesome. It's almost like the 32 Thoughts, but PWHL version. Where it's like interview, great.
And we're way less like professional insiders. We're like, so I texted this person and here's what they told me.
Well, that's the real insight. You're just like, oh, let's just get them on the phone. Let's just call them. Let's just bring them on to chat about it.
It's like very insider type insidering, but it's still fun. It's a lot of fun.
That's how they're going to market the league, right? Try and get them out there and get their faces known as much as possible. So it's awesome that they're using you and you're giving them a platform also to try and grow the league. It's good stuff.
Thanks, guys.
JT, I've missed chatting Leafs with you.
This was awesome.
Did almost every day for 2 years, and I've missed it this season. So I'm glad we're able to get a little bit of Leafs chat in during the playoffs here. Thank you for joining us.
Me too. You guys are the best. Thank you for this.
Today's show is brought to you by Sleeper. Regardless of where we are in the current standings, I want to remind you that you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. It's the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey. Because of Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contest. All you got to do is pick whether studs like McKinnon or Matthews or McDavid will score more or less than those sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in any given game. To win 100 times your bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Leaf fans. You can win 100 times your money by playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper terms of use for details and locational availability.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, you need to go and check out Indeed because you always want to handpick your team with all the stars. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills. We can do it all with Indeed. Candidates you apply through Indeed's instant match tool are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search, according to U.S. Indeed data. With Indeed matching, as soon as you sponsor your post, you get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Boom. It's like hiring in warp speed. Indeed does all the hard work for you. Sponsor a job, and they'll match you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your job description right when you post. With Indeed, you can get started. You can start hiring fast. So make sure you join over the 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Indeed knows that when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application price is not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Hello and welcome back into the Locked On at Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Davd Morassutti. Leafs Bruins game 3 tonight, Dave. I'm excited for it. I am feeling a lot better. Obviously, we had my nonna do the malocchio, so the Leafs should be in good spirits heading into it. The evil is gone, apparently. So that may have just been quite literally on like Brad Marchand specifically. Potentially, maybe that was what my nonna was doing. But shout out, appreciate Nonna DiStefano for that one. Couple quick updates, Dave, ahead of game 3. I mean, there's actually not really many updates, but the question is out there. We spoke about it with Julia for a little bit, and it's where's Willie, right? Not where's Waldo, but where's Willie? And will he play or will he not play is the question. We still do not know. Sheldon Keefe today came out and said that there's still no update, but considers him a, quote, possibility for game 3.
Feels like I've heard that one before.
I know. Maybe I'm optimistic, but I think he does play tonight. I just think if he was practicing ahead of game 2, there was probably a chance that he could have played. And if he didn't, he rested up all of yesterday. And then of all game day to kind of rest whatever was ailing him. Should be good to go for game 3 in front of the home fans. That's what I'm hoping for. But we'll see. I do want to pose the question to you, though, because we were talking about it with Julia, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Should he play on the second line, or should he go back to the third line where he was to win this season? I like, if you look at what Marner's done offensively, it's not a whole lot. Like we saw what the expected goals was of that line of Nyes, Tavares, and Marner in game 2. It was what, 12% is what it ended at, I believe. So not great, right? Like you would hope that your second line, especially with 2 guys who are making $11 million, could produce and provide a little bit more quality than that. Not a single high danger chance, I believe, was created at 5-on-5 for that group either. So, there is a part of me that thinks possibly if Nylander comes back, put him back up on that second line and see if they can try and get them going offensively.
I think I'm trying to picture myself as Sheldon Keefe right now, which is always tough to do because he's very unpredictable. I think Sheldon's going to start him on the third line, but I think he's going to move him to that second line, even just spare in spots. But I also think if this line doesn't get things going offensively, 5-on-5, then yeah, that's going to be the change. I think they're going to start it one way. I think maybe hopefully with the matchups at home, and as Julia said, maybe Marner gets a little bit of a boost playing in the front of the home crowd. Maybe the home crowd could give him some juice, and hopefully no booze for Marner from the home crowd. I don't expect that, but you never know.
Yeah.
So I think he starts on the third line again, but I wouldn't be surprised if Keefe just decides, you know what, second line 5-on-5 hasn't really been doing it. Let's just throw Willie there. Be tough right off the hop, missing the first 2 games, but at the same time, you got to take advantage when you can of getting those scoring opportunities.
So I don't. So I believe that. I guess we're in the same boat. I also think that he's going to start on the third line. Just because, well, 2 things. Although apparently we haven't liked Mitch Marner's game, Sheldon Keefe seems to have liked Marner's game and that line in particular. He spoke today in practice and essentially said, he liked what they've done. He said that those guys are taking on tough responsibility, taking on Pasternak, and he's like what they've done, holding him in check and that line in check. Apparently he's been doing a pretty good job in his eyes of advancing the puck and getting it out of trouble. So I guess, he's seeing some other underlying things, I suppose, that he's liked about Mitch Marner. I'll say this. Based off of what we've heard from Sheldon Keefe and those comments, it sounds as though he really does. Although we see that line and we see Mitch Marner and we see Tavares and Nyes as a line that should be able to produce offensively, he sees them as their checking line. That's what that tells me. Based on he doesn't care what offense they put up as long as they keep pucks out of their net. And they have, to an extent, been able to do that. Just, obviously there was the Pasternak goal off the set face-off play that went awry. But outside of that, they have not, like Pasternak has not been able to score outside of that, right? So I could see him totally keeping that second line intact, using that as a matchup, what you would usually have a third line as a matchup line, but use that line as the matchup with Marchand or Pasternak. I don't know if he would want Willie on that shutdown line, right? So I think that is a reason as to why we could see him play on the third line and then just use him a little bit more offensively. And whether that's him, Yarncroc, and Holmberg, or maybe Holmberg moves to the middle, maybe Willie moves to the middle, and you can keep Roberts in there along with Yarncroc, and Pontus Holmberg comes out. I don't know what they'll do or who's going to come out, but I think it would probably, if I'm reading between the lines and I'm taking Sheldon Keefe at his word, I think he appreciates what the second line has done from a defensive standpoint, trusts them to shut down Pasternak, wants to use them in that role. And I don't know if Nylander quite fits the bill there. So because of that, I think he'll end up on the third line. But to your point, we'll get an opportunity, a couple of shifts in select moments late in the period, maybe to go up on the second, first line just to get him some extra shifts throughout the game.
Yeah, as we have seen with Keefe, the blender will go out if he feels it's necessary. And most of the time,
it's not even a blender. It's not a blender. It's just situational hockey, right? Like
he did it with Yarncroc too. In game 2, he put Yarncroc on the fourth line in defensive zone situations. It's kind of how he does it, right? You have the ability to move these guys around, you might as well do it.
Right, exactly. It's situational hockey. That's what good coaching is, realistically. Yes. That's just knowing your bench and working your bench and your lineup and in-game adjustments and knowing when you need to get maybe a good shift out of somebody, or you just need to get someone a couple extra minutes. Like I remember back in the early days of Chell, they used to call it the hero line, where you would just have a bunch of your stud players essentially that you put out, and it was your hero line. Like that, he gets to that point where eventually he'll put together a Matthews, Marner, and Tavares, or a Matthews, Marner, and Nylander, or whatever happens late in the period, just to try and get as much offense as possible. Or he'll put Marner on the blue line, with an offensive zone faceoff with 33 seconds left in the period. Marner will be on the blue line with Riley, and then you'll see those three guys. Essentially, you're looking at a power play. PP1 goes out there for a 5-on-5 shift because, hey, they want to try and get a goal, or they need a goal late in the game. That's the type of situational hockey that Sheldon Keefe doesn't necessarily get a whole lot of credit for, but he does do that pretty well, I would say. And he does deserve a little bit more appreciation for it. That being said, Dave, outside of, I guess, possibly getting the return of William Nylander, what are a couple of things you think are some keys to victory, we'll say, for Toronto tonight to try and pull ahead in the series?
Well, I mean, take advantage of the home crowd. Get the home crowd into it. Please do not let Boston score first, because you know exactly what the crowd's going to turn into if that happens.
Yeah. Don't waste the home crowd. Don't waste the good home crowd. And we've seen this team in playoff action, how rowdy they can get. I've been there for, opening night playoffs, and it's been loud. They really do get on their feet and they start cheering. Even the guys in the suits in the 100s, they can't help but feel the infectiousness around the arena, stand up and cheer for the Buds. So hopefully that does happen to try and get the Leafs, off to a good start. And then, yes, capitalizing off of that is what's key. There's nothing worse than being scored on 48 seconds into the game to silence the crowd right away. Because Boston's going to do that. They're going to be sending out all of their guns right away to try and score in the first couple of minutes to silence the crowd and take control of the game. The Leafs got to make sure that they do not let that happen. And I think that the Leafs, though, another key, they got to remain physical but stay disciplined. And that they did that really well in the second game, not so much in the first game. So if they can kind of replicate the physicality and maybe even a little bit more discipline, like we had the Bertuzzi, Lyubushkin, and obviously the Jake McCabe penalties that you just don't need. They're nonsense, needless penalties. If you can limit those and just keep playing as physical as you did between the whistles in a legal way, I think the Leafs definitely have an opportunity to win this game and take control of the series. And then lastly, I still think, regardless of what Sheldon Keefe says, I still think Mitch Marner needs to factor in here at some point offensively. Like, sure, okay, doing a good job defensively. but he's paid $11 million to be an offensive dynamo, not to be Phil Deneau. Sorry. Like, that's Phil Deneau money is 5'6". You want to make 11, you got to be Phil Deneau plus. Like Nathan McKinnon almost. Like McKinnon does the two-way there. So I don't know, man. I still think we need to see more out of Marner, and hopefully that starts tonight.
I would say that the reason why, like, what Austin Matthews did was good. It was great. In a way, he lifted the team on his back. But the reason why he had to lift the team on his back is, in my opinion, Mitch Marner hasn't carried his weight. You said it. Yes, you want him to be doing the right things defensively, but he's not paid that money just to do that. He has to be if both Matthews and Marner are going, especially on separate lines, these games are not going to be as close as we've seen them, in my opinion. Right? Like, they beat Boston in that game in spite of Mitch Marner, in my opinion. Like, he didn't elevate them enough to give them that extra boost that they needed.
And I'll say this. I saw somebody commented on, I don't know if it was a Twitter post or on YouTube down below, but they said something like, oh, you shouldn't be so hard on Marner. He's just coming back from an injury. Maybe something's still lingering. Look, Mark Stone had a lacerated spleen. Did you see how well Mark Stone not only defended, but also scored for his Vegas Golden Knights in game 1, his first game back from a lacerated spleen, coming back from injury? That's what top dollar players do, right? They play two ways and they kill it both ways, and they come back from injury and pick up where they left off. And look, Marner had like a 5 or 6 game point streak leading into the playoffs. So it's not as though he's been slow build. It's just the playoffs have come and he's nowhere to be seen. It's Groundhog Day when it comes to that, obviously. It's really disappointing, but hopefully game 3, just like we saw Matthews took him a game to get going into the series, maybe now at home, Marner, he can get it going now in front of all of his friends and family in Toronto. Let's hope, because I think the Leafs are going to need it, because Boston's going to be full throttle tonight, as they're going to want to try and take home ice back into their hands with a win tonight. But hopefully that does not happen. All right, let's end it there, Dave. We'll end it right there. Actually, really quickly, final reminder also for to fill out the giveaway form in the show notes down below for the Austin Matthews jersey. So you could do that down below if you haven't already. Just make sure that you are
241 responses so far. So people are signing up.
People are signing up.
5,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
I want to see you get more.
There's a lot of you who have yet to sign up. So make sure you do that down the show notes below, and we'll keep registration open until the end of the first round. All right. Now that will do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. Follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. Until then, keep locked right here on Locked On Leafs.